you want to be 10x better than anything else on the market. And I believe that, but I think that's really hard to do with your first run at a product that you put out the door. So for us, instead, what we've done is we've made incremental improvements over time so that within a time frame, within a few years, we think we now are 10x better than where we started.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Creating an environment for continuous improvement isn't just something that sounds good, and it isn't such something you hope to have. You can actually create that if you're very intentional about it. Continuous improvement is a mindset. It's having the right people that are willing to fail, but willing to iterate on those failures to get something innovative out of it. And that's exactly the story we have today. We have Chris Jacob is the founder of Gateway Genomics. They were number 236 on the Inc. list. They've really created a really innovative product. Over the years, it took many iterations to get there, and that is because of continuous improvement. So one of the things I love about this is we walk through the three areas which he really does highlight how they're doing this continuous improvement and really reinforcing it and living it every day. So that will be a highlight inside this episode. So make sure you tune into that. Thanks for tuning in here to Grow Think Tank. Really excited about sharing this with you. And before you run, I have done so many interviews over the last few weeks. I have such an exciting time to share with you that those interviews have been organized into the 12 core principles of fast growth companies. So all you have to do to get that is go to genehammett.com/worksheet. So you can get the 12 principles, and I've been able to go in there and find which episodes will align to each individual episode. When you subscribe to Grow Think Tank, you will find exactly what you need so that you can move forward. And many of them haven't been published yet, depending on when you're hearing this, but you can tune in to the date that means the most to you. Now, here's the episode with Chris. Hi, Chris. How are you?
Doing great, Gene. Thank you.
Well, excited to have you here at Growth Think Tank. I've already let our audience know a little bit about you at a personal level, but I've also told them a little bit about the company. But give us some context about Gateway Genomics.
Sure. So Gateway Genomics is a personal genomics company. We're focused on developing innovative fetal and infant DNA test products. Our company provides access to prenatal genetic information that was previously inaccessible to families to improve their child's health and development.
So this is really about innovation.
It is, certainly. So we've got our first product that we brought to market is the first 99% accurate at-home fetal sex test that allows families to learn the gender of their baby as early as 8 weeks into pregnancy.
My wife would have been the first one to sign up for that because she had to move her appointment earlier 12 years ago.
Yes.
And before we went on vacation so that we could spend the vacation to figure out the name of the baby.
I'll tell you a quick story on that, if you're okay, Gene. We had someone fly in from Canada yesterday to California to take our test and fly back to Canada the same day. Just because they wanted to find out gender early in pregnancy. It's a big deal to families. It really is. It's one of those life-changing moments. For me personally, when I was having my son, finding out the gender was sort of a JFK moment where you don't forget where you were. You remember that call. You remember finding out boy or girl. And it's a life-changing, impactful piece of information to get.
Well, I know that a big part of this company is having a great team around it, and you really are providing other services behind sex, right? There are some other aspects that you're working on for the evolution of your company. Is that fair?
That's correct. We've got some very exciting products we're going to bring to market in the coming year that families can use on young children, infants, newborns, babies, to gain insight into the genetic information, the inherited traits that those childs have picked up from their parents. That'll be coming here in the near future. So we're very excited for that.
Well, I brought that up because it's not a one product company and you're done. You just got to sell it. Like there's a continuous process here. So I want to dive into this. When you look at the fast growth of your company. I mean, you've grown really tremendously for the number of employees. You have about 35 employees, is that right?
That's correct. 35 as of today.
What are the most critical factors of the culture that has made this possible?
Yeah, so I think speaking to that, what's been important for us is this continuous improvement to grow the company the way we have over the past few years. We feel that in order to have great market uptake in a new product offering like ours from a new brand, a new company, you've really got to have something that's a magnitude better than anything else out in the market for solving whatever problem that is that your product is solving. So for us, with this fetal sex test that we introduced, that's 99% accurate in home, we had to continually optimize it from day one. So we've had multiple versions of this product since we brought it to market a few years ago. It's unique. It asks women to take a test in their home where they've got to prick their finger and collect a few drops of blood and send that back to our laboratory for testing. Now, collecting your own blood in home is very new to most people. Very few people have done that before. And so when we were developing this new test, this new process, we had to continually look to making that customer experience better. So how do we get packages to people quickly? How do we test in our laboratory quickly? How do we increase capacity in our laboratory? These are all tough challenges that as we grew, we had to figure out. And then the product itself, how do you make it easy for the customer to use? How do you make the information we provide back engaging and meaningful to the families? Several companies have tried to operate in this space and they've come and gone, they've failed. I think one of the reasons that they failed was the inability to continually innovate, to continually improve the experience, the product and service you're providing. So for us, you'll hear this, you want to be 10x better than anything else on the market. And I believe that, but I think that's really hard to do with your first run at a product that you put out the door. So for us, instead, what we've done is we've made incremental improvements over time so that within a time frame, within a few years, we think we now are 10x better than where we started. In our space, pregnancy tests, you're probably familiar with pregnancy tests. These came to market in the 70s. And it's an interesting story there with pregnancy tests. The first one that came to market, I don't know if you've seen this, it's in the Smithsonian, but it looked like a laboratory chemistry set where you had to mix reagents, you had to add your own urine to this tube, you'd mix a couple things with droppers, you'd put it in your refrigerator for a couple hours and it had goat serum in there. And this stuff would go in your fridge, you'd have to incubate it. And what's interesting there is that was the first product. Now today we have very simple strips, but it took almost 20 years from the introduction of that product to get to a 1-minute product that was just simply the test you see now. And then there was another 10 years to go from the product, the pregnancy test strips where you would see a readout to getting one that was digital. That took another decade. So, yeah, please.
That's really a good perspective because, I think in the medical industry, it's never just, one iteration. It's a continuous small improvements. And I think every leader would probably say, yes, we want to have continuous improvement. This is what we expect of our employees. But what they don't understand is it's not really at fault for the employees. It's about the leadership. It's about creating that intention and that structure. So let's dive into what that is. What do you have to do to be, really intentional about creating a continuous improvement environment?
So I think it starts with recruiting is what we found. When we're recruiting, we're looking for 3 C's. We want people who are competent, competent, and care. So if you've got someone who's competent, they're going to speak up. If they're self-confident, they're going to contribute. We let our future employees, our prospective employees know when we're interviewing them that the expectation is on this small team, we need you to be a contributor. We want to hear from you. We want you to bring some ideas to the table about how we can get better at what we're doing. So there's that confidence piece that we look for in each person we have joining the team. The other one is being competent, really, really good at the function that we're bringing you in for to work on this team. And with that, if the person's really competent and they come in, they're going to see where we can improve in their function and their role that they're playing on the team. And then the caring piece, I think, is equally important. You have people who care. They care about their teammates and they care about the customer. Then they're going to be engaged. They're emotionally connected now to finding a good solution for our customers. So we hear back from our customers we get good feedback. It's a direct-to-consumer test that we sell. So we sell to the customer, we hear back from that customer, we survey them constantly. And with that feedback and a team that cares, we're going to be responsive now to their needs. And then that finds its way into improvements over time, where again, we end up with a very different product than where we start. The other change that we've made is we have a top-down and a bottom-up approach to goal setting in the company. So I think this is important too. With the top-down piece, there the executive team, management team is coming up with a lot of the goals, but we also expect, and we make this clear with employees, that we want to see about 50% of the goals for that employee coming from the employee. So they're in the day-to-day, they're working in their specific role for the business, and they know best. They've got the knowledge, firsthand knowledge, as to how improvements could be made to what they're doing. And so we don't want to dictate that down. We want to hear from each employee. And so with that expectation that half of their goals have to come from them, there is this ongoing feedback that's coming, again, from the employee to how we are going to improve within their specific function. The other thing we have, I think, that a lot of companies don't necessarily have is regular one-on-one meetings between employees and managers. This is important, and also the way we conduct this, I think, is very helpful for us. So we ask managers to meet one-on-one with all employees, and they can do that weekly or bi-weekly. The other thing they have to do is the employee sets the agenda for those meetings. I've seen it done the other way. It's less useful. When you have the employee setting that agenda, they're constantly thinking about, what do I need to work through? How can the manager help me? What are my greatest issues? What's top of mind for me? And generally, those are going to be the things that are friction points, something that's not optimal in the business. And from that discussion, now the manager and employee can work through those issues to improve the process. So I think that those are some of the key things we do in this company to have continuous improvement part of the culture.
Well, I really love all of that. Going back to recruiting, are those the company core values, or did you come up with just those confidence, competent, and care separately?
It's part of our culture, and it's part of our core values. Yes,
okay.
I would agree, certainly.
Is there anything that you've learned through the process to make sure recruiting the right people in for this continuous learning aspect?
So our recruitment process we have, we've been improving that over time. There's a team that's assembled for any position that we go to hire. We make sure that we have the right people interviewing these candidates, that everybody has specific topics that they're going to work on with the prospective employee. So that's all incorporated into the recruiting process, and I think that ends up where, again, we find these like-minded employees that end up joining the team.
Now I want to ask you about the goal setting. It's very common to have a good portion of the goals to be top down, but you found this bottom up, which is very specific, that the employees are coming up with 50% of their own goals. Where did you learn that, or where did you kind of adopt that from?
Sure. So I'll take no credit for this. A lot of this came from us watching. It started with a TED Talk. I think it's called Measure What Matters, right? It's like John Doerr, and it's used at Google, Intel. Andy Grove's got a great book from Intel to have a look at. And with that system, it's called OKRs, right? This is objectives and key results. And so with that system for goal setting, what they get at is your organization really needs to measure what matters, so you know exactly what you should be doing, and conversely, what you should not be using time to do. So for us, as an organization, although it can change from time to time, right now, currently for us, our key objective, but the key thing we measure, are how many of our tests are being utilized per year by families. We think as an organization, if we're going to have impact in this world, the way we're going to measure that is not by dollars, not by revenue, not by profit, but instead by the number of families that are using our test products. So that's what we've set as the top level company goal. Then from that now, the departmental goals all flow from that. So if we've set a goal, let's say 1 million tests to be used in a year from our company by families around the world. Now each department has to figure out how they're going to support that top level company goal. And that's where the management team will, of course, put down a few goals, but then the employee is expected to also produce about 50% of those goals. And again, that comes from that OKR system. We found that to be very helpful, very successful for us. It keeps people focused. everybody can see how everything they're doing relates all the way up to the top goal of how many families we want using our tests as a company.
Now, Chris just talked about measure what matters. Now, a lot of companies put too much emphasis on the hardcore numbers of revenues and profitability. And I know that sounds really weird when it comes from someone who is an expert in growth and creating teams about growth. But you really want to create the kind of measurement that truly does connect to people's hearts. People aren't as concerned with the revenue number as you are, but maybe they're concerned with, the level of impact that they're making inside their role. Maybe they're concerned with the measure of impact that you're making as a company. And so you got to find measurement that has a little bit more soul to it than just money. Even though money may be something that's driving you and it's a good way to measure things, find a measurement that really does matter. Now back to Chris. Now let's go into this one-on-one, because I want to make sure that it's absolutely crystal clear here. Like, we all know that we should be doing one-on-ones. I think a lot of leaders think that it's kind of a bothersome aspect, and doing it once a week is probably not necessary. They also think probably twice a week as much, even a month. But you've got a rhythm that you do. What's specific about the rhythm that makes it work?
Sure. So with respect to the cadence, in terms of how frequently are you meeting with someone, I think the approach is, how senior is this person? How independent can they be? And so if you've got someone where you're going to need constant interaction, maybe they're a little bit newer to the organization or to their role in the company, you might want to have more frequent meetings. And then where you've got sort of someone who's more experienced and the frequency of these meetings can be a bit less, then you dial that down. So it'll be, for us, I find it to either be once a week or once every other week. That's general sort of cadence that we see for these one-on-one meetings.
Now, Chris just talked about one-on-one meetings. Now, I want to make sure that I share my insight behind this, because you want to make sure you have the right kinds of meetings. It's not just one kind of meeting. One kind of meeting is, trying to check what they're doing and where they're going, and maybe it's goal setting and all of the things that they have their agenda. But you also want to have a meeting that really does give you insight to how the organization is going and how it's really how you can make some changes. I call this the stay conversation. One of them pieces to that is really about what's going on in their personal lives, really connecting with them at a personal level, taking notes behind it. A lot of people are afraid to take notes. If you want to also take it to the next level, ask questions around, what can we do to improve the culture here? What can we do to improve the leadership? What do you need to perform at a higher level? Take more ownership of your work. If you want some details behind that, just go to genehammett.com/stay. This is the stay framework conversation. So just go to genehammett.com/stay. Now back to the interview with Chris. And I love the part that you have their employees bring their own agenda. So is there a time frame that you set to this, or is it just a structure that they need help with?
Sure. So the way we instruct there is, you have to have the agenda in advance of the meeting, and then it depends on what those topics are going to be and what's going to be discussed. If it's something that requires the manager's review and comment, then you've got to do it 24 hours in advance of the meeting. If there's no need for review and comment, it's simply going to serve as a checklist of the items to be discussed. Then that can happen. That agenda can go out anytime prior to the meeting.
Well, I love that you have all of these very clearly defined as a way to create this continuous improvement in the organization. Have you made any mistakes in this journey? I know there's probably a lot to answer, because I can tell by your smile. What's one that comes to mind that really helps you maybe move forward and find something that really worked better?
Sure. So I think when we first launched our test, it worked perfectly. Again, we have this at-home DNA test that determines fetal sex at high accuracy. The first version of our test worked extremely well under controlled laboratory conditions. And then when we put it out into the market, into the end user's hands, user error started to creep in. And for us, that was difficult. So we had to quickly work to eliminate the potential user error that existed in the early versions of our test. Reid Hoffman from LinkedIn, right, has this famous quote about, if you're not embarrassed about the first version of your product, you're probably launching too late. And Some people I think misinterpret that to mean it's okay to put out a bad product, I don't think that's what he was getting at. I think that you come out with the best product that you have the resources to produce. It still has to serve the customer and provide real value to them. And it should also be a tool that you use to get good feedback from your customers. So I think we did that. I think we accomplished those things. We were providing good value. We did get good feedback, and then we were able to make constant improvement to bring the product to the condition it's in now.
I appreciate you making that clarification. I've heard this quote by Reid Hoffman, and obviously you don't want to put out something that's subpar and embarrassing, but you do want to put out something that you can get feedback on, which I appreciate you sharing that story with us. Chris, I really would like to thank you for being on the show, sharing your wisdom, and really helping us understand how to create more of a continuous improvement organization.
Well, thank you, Gene. I appreciate you having me on your show.
What a fantastic episode. I really love the fact that he was very sharp with those answers. He's got some media training behind him. And I really appreciate us going into the depth of the 3 core areas of continuous improvement. If you want to create this environment, then you can model off the success of Gateway Genomics and Chris Jacobs has created and shared with us today. Now, hopefully you're getting as much out of these interviews as I do. I'm taking notes. If you're watching on the video, you actually see me writing down things, but I really would love for you to share this with one person that you know could get some benefit out of it, that wants to be a better leader, that wants to create fast growth. That's what I do. I help leaders really be the kind of leaders that create the kind of growth, not out of sheer hustle, but out of clear strategy and clear culture development. Now, here's the final thing I'll say today is really appreciate you listening here. I really appreciate you tuning in. And as always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.